Aprons make a lot of sense. Grandmothers and chefs are the two categories that come to mind when the term apron is mentioned. As often happens, what was in vogue in the past decades makes a revival. Aprons are no exceptions. Mary Malari, master of streamlining sewing projects, sets her sights on upgrading vintage aprons with easy sew techniques, including making each style reversible. Mary, you're back to share some of your great designs and tips.
Thanks, Nancy. We're going to start with waist-tie aprons. The first option is a vintage style with upgraded appeal. The apron silhouette is classic 1950s, but the techniques are definitely 21st century. The daytime side features a coffee cup pocket. The reverse side is perfect for the hostess to wear with her little black dress. The sewing is easy, but also totally enjoyable.
Easy reversible aprons, everyday and elegant. That's what's coming up next on Sewing with Nancy.
Sewing with Nancy, TV's longest-airing sewing and quilting program with Nancy Zieman, is made possible by Baby Lock, a complete line of sewing, quilting, and embroidery machines and sergers. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing. Madeira, specializing in embroidery, quilting, and special effect threads, because creativity is never black and white. Koala Studios, fine sewing furniture custom built in America. Clover, makers of sewing, knitting, quilting, and embroidery products for over 25 years. Experience the Clover difference. Amazing designs and Class A needles.
We'll take a close-up look at this apron, and Mary, you've entitled this.
This is coffee cups and cocktails.
Here's the coffee cup size of this half apron, and then the cocktail side for the more elegant dinner party. There you go, fun.
This is the martini glass made from 2 pieces of faux suede fabric, and it functions both as a decoration and as a pocket.
Now for these patterns that we're using, you'll be cutting out the tissue papers to making these, and we're going to specialize in the techniques so that you can make them with ease, and really very little fabric is needed.
That's right. It's 1 yard of 2 prints, and we have the pattern laid out here. It's on the fold of the fabric, and there's one of each, one black layer, one lighter colored layer for this particular apron, and it's simple just to cut this out.
One of the first steps is to apply the pocket, which is also the applique. And Mary, you've used not the cotton fabric for the pockets.
Right. This is kind of non-traditional applique fabric, Nancy. It's this faux suede and easy to cut out this shape. It's non-fraying fabric, so we sew around the edges to secure it.
Now, we're going to show you, in this sample, we have it partially sewn together, but before doing the sewing, you would place the applique on either layer. And just for fun, Mary, let's put this on the open side of the applique. You'll have a position on your pattern so you know exactly where to put the pocket, and then pin it into place. And here you can see I'm just top stitching around the edges with clear thread.
Right, that's so the stitching is invisible, and we use pins so we don't fuse it down permanently.
And when it's stitched, this is a washable fabric. It's very easy to sew around, no ravelly edges, and what a fun applique.
Very quick, too.
Either side. Now you'll see on the nighttime or the evening side of this fun apron is a little piping.
Yes, we have 2 techniques for piping, Nancy, and they're both very easy. And the first one is called flat piping. It's a 1-inch fold of fabric cut across the grain. And there's enough stretch in that cross-grain cut so you can make it go around edges and curves. And then that's placed, it's folded in half and pressed and placed on the edge and stitched down all the way around.
On the sample that you made, you had a little bit more of a decisive piping.
That's right. It kind of stands out a little more. It's more dimensional.
So this is a fusible piping. It's a piping wrapped with fusible web, and it's purchased this way. So then you can just run the tip of your iron along the piping, and it fuses it together, and then you'd pin it around the edges.
This is a great product, very easy to use, and creates a really professional look.
A little bit more defined edge.
That's right.
So after you pin the piping around the edges, Then you do some sewing.
And the first stitching is to sew just the product on, the piping, and then you put the second layer on top, and then we would pin these together, Nancy, but then we're going to sew from this side because we have a stitching guide back there.
Piping.
Yes, that's right.
And you sew all the way around the edge and turn it right side out. Really, really simple. There's a waistband pattern, and this is a split waistband, really clever.
Very different because it's a two-piece pattern. And we're going to cut 4 pieces, and I've chosen the coordinates for the apron that we have as a sample, and turn back one edge and fuse that in place, and then overlapped the edges so that you have a waist measurement planned here.
And a little give.
That's right, yeah, in that notch in the front. And our next sample shows the waistband sewed to the one side of the apron. And the back edges have been pressed under. And we're going to next pin everything together, but we do need to put the ties in.
And ties are going to be used throughout this program using the half aprons and just traditional ties sewn right sides together and sewn in the edge. With these simple techniques, wow, I mean, we've gone through them fast, but you can see you can make these in a couple of hours.
That's right.
So the coffee cups and cocktails, a charming apron. The Fresh Air apron will help with the work of saving energy as you hang your laundry outdoors to dry. The pocket openings give easy access to a stash of clothespins. Add a clothespins theme embroidery design and a loop to hang the apron when it's not in use. The apron's other side is just right for evening entertaining with its combination of black and white prints and ric-rac trim. This vintage style apron, made now modern, Mary, is made with 4 fabrics.
That's right. 2 for the everyday side and 2 pieces of fat quarter fabrics for the elegant or evening side.
And those fat quarter fabrics are they're 18 by 22 cuts of fabric, and great one for here. And the technique we're going to spend some time on is the pocket.
That's right. We're going to use raw edge bias, and it's pieced as well, so it's not a continuous. And because we've been making aprons and we have a lot of scraps, we can make use of them.
Small project, fast bias trim, and it starts with the fat quarter fabrics.
I have my 2 everyday combinations here, and we'll open them up, and here's the pattern which we place on the fold of the fabric. We cut 2 certainly for the top of the apron. This yellow layer actually goes beneath, and we're going to add interfacing to the back side of what will be the front of the apron. So this will be fused in place on the blue or the front piece of the apron to give it a little bit of stability. And then we have that piece all set here, and we are going to use this template with the pattern to make the cut for the pocket opening. It's 5.5 inches from the top edge, and it's angled to 2 inches
Here, Mary, why don't you cut that?
from the side of the apron. So these 2 cuts can be made all at the same time through both layers, and this apron front, Nancy, is really pretty sturdy with the addition of the interfacing.
Sure. Now this bias trim with the raw edges is very clever, and it doesn't wear. The bias doesn't stretch, or it stretches, it doesn't ravel as much. It's a good idea.
That's right. I have my strips cut, and I have little pieces of fusible web that I've fused to the back, and I'm going to join these together by overlapping and then fusing. And that's very easy. You can use even very small scraps. And in our next sample, we have several of these fused together. So we have a long chain that's about 40 inches long, which will do both pockets. And then we're going to press this in half and begin to pin here on one pocket opening. And we'll just pin this over the edges. And then we're going to sew. We're ready to sew after that.
So it's been pinned on. And here's a close-up of using a narrow zigzag, or you could use 2 rows of straight stitch to attach this together.
Our sample shows the pockets all prepared, and here we had 2 rows of straight stitching to secure the bias.
Now you can see then the blue layer is placed on top of the yellow layer.
Very easy.
It is. Then when we look at the back of it, or the reverse side, really not the back, you have two pattern pieces. And we have these placed on the fold, the lighter and the darker.
And then we add trim to the center of the apron. We have rickrack stitched in place around the edges.
Vintage aprons had rickrack.
Oh gosh, and it's back and very stylish. And so we can then proceed to sew on the outer edge of the apron, again following the line that we used to sew the rickrack in place to begin with.
So you meet right sides together around the curve. It's designed just perfectly. And then you have the two pieces.
So we're all set now with our back of the apron, and we press the edges and the rickrack, and we need some ties for our apron as well.
So you'll meet right sides together, sew around the edges, finish the top, and then the ties. Mary, we just show this. This tells the story.
Old-time aprons used to, maybe they didn't have enough fabric for a full tie, so they added more.
And that's the Fresh Air apron.
For the gardener, the handywoman, or the quilter wanting to keep her tools at hand, the tool belt apron provides the way to be efficient and organized. When the day's work is done, flip over the apron to its dark side with flat piping to trim the apron sections and a removable pocket to store a cell phone or a tube of lipstick.
What a versatile apron. From carpentry to a dinner party, you have it all in one.
That's right, you can wear it all day. And we have it set up here for the quilter with the scissors in one of the pockets. But then we look at the back side of the apron, the other side, and we see here the flat piping in yellow, and we have a movable pocket as well.
And I like the fact, Mary, that you put a free hem so that it's open at the hem. You don't have to worry about exactly turning it right side out perfectly. It's easy to get at it and easy to stitch.
That's right.
Now there are 4 pattern pieces for this particular pattern. They're a little unique, especially this shape.
That's right. We need 5/8 of a yard of 2 fabrics to get this main piece of the apron.
You can see the main pieces, and then there's a piece for the pocket, and then for the ties.
Those 4 pieces. And Nancy, when the reference material for today, the patterns will be white, but we use colored paper on television because it just
shows
looks
up
better. That's
yes.
right. And so the important step here before we sew these together is to fuse interfacing to the wrong sides.
And rather stiff interfacing.
That's right. I like something a little sturdier for this one.
And then I've notched at the center of the two, and then I would match at the edges, and then just kind of meet around the edges. And you always sew with the longer area, which is the curve, to the feed dogs, because that will make it easier to ease in the layers. So they fit in perfectly. It's a gentle ease.
That's right.
And you just stitch around the area.
Our next sample shows all of that done, and we've also added ties, and they aren't interfaced, but that extension is added. And our next step is to add the pocket to the apron front. And that too has interfacing because we want that nice and sturdy. And we press back the top edge. But I also like to add a little bit of extra trim to this pocket. Now you see that it's wider than the apron center. So we're going to plan this and place and pin it to the pocket or to the apron base, and we're going to decide what size of pockets do we want for the tools that we intend to carry. And so some pockets might have a tuck in the bottom, and others are narrow, like for the scissors or a pen. And we will pin this in place and draw lines to indicate where we want our pockets to be divided.
And I'm guessing here, but you could make it to fit your tools.
That's right. Very personalized project and apron. I think work is easier to do when we have things at hand.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of have the front done.
Right.
If you stitch around the pocket, add the shaping. And then for the elegant side of this,
we have more of that flat piping on this back side around the edges of the curved section.
this is a little bit more curved, so maybe you'd cut that on the bias.
You could, yes. And then we add the additional part to build our apron back, and then we're going to, of course, put right sides together. and stitch, but we're not going to leave the bottom open, as you mentioned, Nancy.
So it's a one big seam.
Oh gosh, it really is. Yeah, a lot of sewing, straight sewing.
Sew around the edge, around the ties, around the other ties, coming down and finishing at this seam. It's kind of like a race. You turn it right side out. And then you maybe finish the lower edge. You turn up the hem. We'll look again at this. We have some other details, but just to show you the ease of which this goes together, the tool belt can be made very sophisticated or very functional. Inspired by a vintage apron design, this new version is easier and faster to sew. It's fun to combine a group of coordinating fabrics from a fat quarter bundle for one side of the apron and a collection of elegant black prints for the other side. The shapely waistband is trimmed with rickrack. You'll be delighted to find that a second size apron is available, ideal for your daughter or granddaughter. Here again is Mary's version of the apron, not a belt, but apron with the bright side, the everyday side, and
the elegant evening, the party side.
Yeah.
And this is a good excuse, Nancy, for someone to break into their stash of fat quarters again.
It is. And then if you have some left over for your little helper, you can make a miniature size, 5
for the child and 7 wedges for the adult. And we have our pattern pieces here. The smaller one is for the child and the larger one for the adult. And we cut 7 of these for the adult from fabric. And then we're going to fold over the wider bottom end and sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance across the end. And then we chain.
You can chain stitch, right. Sewing several together, and here's a close-up of how you just sew one, meet the next one, and just keep sewing without raising your presser foot.
Very fast and easy. And then we have our next sample to show that we do cut them apart and press the seam a bit, and then using a point turner, we're going to turn this right side out. And give this a little push here so we have a really nice sharp point, and this now is how we build the hem of our apron.
You'll be making all of your wedges and then sewing them together, right sides together.
A 1/4 inch seam allowance and a little bit of stitching, but it's fast and easy.
I kind of like to start at the fold at this edge and then sew to the waistline and then just press open the seams, and notice that you continue with however many wedges you'll need, whether it's 10 or 14.
Right. And then our final step for this apron will be to meet the last 2 edges and sew. And so we form a tube with our necktie wedges.
Now, sometimes these you mentioned can become a little bit...
Right. They might stand out a bit more than you'd want. So with pieces of paperback fusible web, you'd place them in inside the points and press fuse in place.
And then remove the paper backing.
And another fusing here will keep this, will hold it in better. It'll work better.
We talked about easy. This is easy, right? Now, the waistband. The waistband of both styles will just reference the little person's waistband, but has a touch of that good old-fashioned rickrack. And a little bit of that will go a long way. Stitching it to 1 layer down the center.
And then we meet the second layer of the waistband to that waistband edge, and we again use the guide of the previous seam to sew it in place.
And then flip to the right side, and there you have the edge. I like that little scalloped edge. You use ties to put this together.
And I think that's a quick and easy waistband.
Ribbons,
waist tie.
I should say. And then there's a little bonus here, Mary.
That's right. For this little person's apron, and also for the adult apron, a button-on bib. And that goes on one side of the apron, make some buttonholes, and we have a very interesting full apron.
Oh, yeah, just really cute. And
that too is reversible.
Sure. So we would then flip to this side, and you can see that, presto, you have another version. So you'll find with the information that accompanies today's program, there'll be little extra incidentals, like a little pocket you could put in, and all interesting ways to wear this. So Mary, great idea of working with ties.
Thank you.
experiencing sewing and quilting in middle school may not seem very unique. Yet when learning the skill and researching the designs takes place in a history class, you might inquire, as I did, about this project. Honors quilts are researched and made as part of Bob Gentili's history class in Belleville, Wisconsin, with the hope of making a difference. With me today are Kristen O'Connor and Brian Wiesner, two of the students who spent time working on this project to share with us this unique learning experience. Welcome to Sewing with Nancy.
Well, hi.
Yeah, hi. And you were part of the group, the movers and the shakers and the quilters who did research, choosing designs, fabric, and making the quilt. And let's start with the research project, because that's kind of part of your history class, right?
Yeah.
Well, for my class, I was second block, and that class went to St. Mary's Care Center, and it's by Verona, and we interviewed a lot of the residents there, and they told us about like their experiences. Like some of them were in World War II, and some of them were nurses, and like they remembered playing baseball when they were younger and stuff. So we took those like topics and tried to incorporate them into our quilt, like with the time eras and stuff.
Fascinating. And Brian, you're part of, after the shakers did the research, and then you were part of the makers.
Yes, I helped building the quilt. We actually sewed them together using the information that we got from the shakers, and we made the quilt that is going to one of our secretaries of our school. And so this is going to hopefully bring her hope and joy.
And you did that because she's going through cancer treatment.
She has colon cancer.
So that we have two quilts that we have to share with you. Kristen, your group worked on the quilt for the senior center, and you can see that right now. And one of the blocks, I like the baseball block.
Yeah, that was one. There were many of them that said they remembered when they were little, they played baseball, and the neighbors would get together and play baseball all the time. And that was like, most of them said it, and so we figured we should try to incorporate something about that in the quilt, and that was actually like probably one of the hardest blocks.
And then you have a couple other blocks. It's a detailed block, right? And some of the other blocks on that quilt?
We had one that was for the World War II, everyone who was in that, because there were nurses and stuff. And then we had a bingo one, because many of them enjoy bingo.
Oh, sure, great. Very nice. And, and Brian, the quilt that you worked on has a floral theme.
Yes, the secretary of our school loves to garden. So we have a lot with butterflies and a lot of green.
And then after you did the making of the blocks, I know there was the Lynn Almy and the Patches and Petals group helped you put together the quilts.
Yes. So we went there every single time we had social studies, which for me was block 4.
Okay.
And so because of that, we got to go to Patches and Petals. And then there we just got to sew together the blocks.
So what was your favorite part of doing this research and planning and creating project?
Mine was probably like our class, there were 12 of us that went down to the sewing shop, and I liked the fact that it was like a lot of my friends were in it, so it was like all my friends, and we were just sewing and making quilts, and it was a lot of fun. It didn't like even seem like you were working and trying to do something. It was just fun to do and like think of things to design and ways to incorporate different things in.
And how about you, Brian? Learning or experiencing, what was your part that you liked?
I actually learned how to sew with a sewing machine.
How about that in history class?
Yes.
Or social studies, right?
I never expected it.
And is it so bad?
No, it's actually pretty fun.
It is. Well, I think this is a really unique way of learning, doing some research, and even you did some promoting of the quilts too. Proceeds?
We raised around $1,100, and we donate to the Carbone Cancer Center
for another quilt you did, right?
Yeah, for another quilt. And also we had groups that went on the local news stations here and radio stations. We wanted to get the word out about it and like trying to get people to help us.
Well, thank you, Kristen. Brian, what a pleasure to have you, 7th and 8th graders from Belleville Middle School in Wisconsin. And you too may incorporate some of this in your school program. You find out more information about this at nancyzieman.com, where all things Sewing with Nancy are there. You'll find the 52 most current shows of Sewing with Nancy you can watch online, and also you can view my blog and all the interesting things that might help you with further sewing and quilting information. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.
Mary Malari has developed 2 patterns that serve as the reference for this 2-part series. You'll receive both patterns for $14.99 plus shipping and handling. To order the patterns, call 800-336-8373 or visit our website at sewingwithnancy.com/2510. Order item number BP2510. Easy reversible aprons, everyday and elegant. Credit card orders only. To pay by check or money order, call the number on the screen for details. Visit Nancy's website at nancyzieman.com to see additional episodes, Nancy's blog, and more. Sewing with Nancy, TV's longest-airing sewing and quilting program with Nancy Zieman, has been brought to you by Baby Lock, Madeira Threads, Koala Studios, Clover, Amazing Designs, and Class A Needles. Closed captioning funding provided by Rowenta. Sewing with Nancy is a co-production of Nancy Zieman Productions and Wisconsin Public Television.